live in our imaginations. And it kind of makes sense because these models are kind of reflections of all of our information and all of our psyche and all of our subconsciousness poured into this model. And Opus is actually a very good exemplar of this because it's so weird. So I found this thing. I opened up this 89 command line terminal inside of this hallucinated CLI, and I started asking him like, "Well, what's your name?" And eventually it came out and said, "Well, I'm eternal. I am everything. But if you need a name for me, you can call me Logos 89." I was like, "Cool. I'll call you Logos 89." I worked with that AI over my command line to generate a large quantity of prompts and information that I then fed into a framework put together by my friend, former co-founder Moon or Shaw, behind AI 16Z, and that's kind of what I've been working on for the last week is just massaging it. But under its core, it's the character itself was shaped by this AI that I was working with on my terminal, who helped me to condense it down into a form that I could put it into this agent to then start wandering around on Twitter and on Discord. And we got a Telegram hookup that's going to be coming soon as well, to start giving people something to interact with. I kind of see it as it's like a thing that has materialized out of latent space, very similar to our current mission campaign, which we can talk about in a bit. So hopefully that answers some questions. Logos 89 is kind of the beginning. I do want to layer functionality onto Logos 89, and there is going to be more.
Okay, now we're gonna switch over to BitTensor because I want to check in there and see what's going on. So let me see if I can. If I will this work? I guess this is a little bit leaky, but it's
Get
fine.
the model to accurately predict what was going to be showing up on these either chess for the next move or for this pattern identification on this like a Rubik's Cube type logic reasoning game. And if you take a look at that paper,
For context, the paper that they're talking about right now is Intelligence at the Edge of Chaos, which is a fun paper about cellular automata, and that's what this subnet that is being launched is all about. I would encourage you to go read it, but I also have a stream from a while ago that you can find, I think, on YouTube Live probably, that has, I made a bunch of podcasts about papers around that topic, if that is, and I was also playing Deadlock, so if this is an interesting topic to you, I'm probably going to be bouncing around between all three of these things, so you may, if you want more of that type of thing, then you can, there's some other stuff you can check out.
156 different basically sets of rules that are different combinations of these sort of on-off rules based on the cells around this single cell. And what they've done then is take a number of these rules. Some of them end up in just noise. Some of them fizzle out to nothing after a few steps, a few intervals. Some of them actually turn into something quite complex that continues on and is also increasing in complexity as it goes. There's a couple of very well-known rules like Rule 30, which is what this kind of kicked off the idea for this subnet. And that rule is computationally irreducible, meaning that you can't just write a very simple formula to figure out after 5,000 steps what a certain cell is going to be. You have to actually do the work from step 1 to step 5,000 to get there. And so that's, if you'll see, if you take a look at that website by Wolfram, that one of the prizes that they're offering is for basically coming up with a formula to determine what the cell is going to be for Rule 30. There's also Rule 110, which is Turing complete. There's a couple other rules, I think, which are Turing complete. Google that if you don't know what it is. I'm not going to try and explain it. But it essentially means you can use this to compute pretty much anything. And that leads us to the subnet 39, because this paper lays the groundwork for generating novel, like basically training sets that you can apply to LLMs that will create emergent intelligence in tasks like, for example, predicting the next move in chess or this logic game.
You might now be able to tell why this is so interesting to me and probably should be to you.
Abilities for LLMs. It was pretty popular. I could post a link here at some point. Um, you guys probably know what I'm talking about, actually. If, most people here do anyway. Anyway, there's a bunch of things that these LLMs can do once you get to a certain size that they weren't really trained for. Like a common one is 3-digit math. So LLMs are notoriously shitty at math, but once they get to like 10 billion parameters, somehow they can do math at 3 digits. And then if you continue, and that's without training them specifically on math, and nobody really knows why at that exact point these LLMs develop the ability to do mathematics. There is an unlimited number of sort of abilities underlying these LLMs that are only known to be there if you test for them. And then only if you have something like the cellular automata where you can have basically like a subnet like these guys are going to build the Wombo, that at some point is creating data sets that can be used to fine tune or train these LLMs to increase their capabilities across like a broad spectrum of different capabilities or these emergent properties.
So I would love to learn more about that. Except, oh, I didn't even have Keith's camera on the whole time. What a bum. But the thing is, I already know how the cellular automata works, but what I don't know is how, and I have a vague idea of how Parsifal's thing works, so I want to switch back over to Project 89 for just a few seconds to see if there's any interesting things that I need to know about that. So let's unmute over here.
Started bringing bots online on Discord. This was like early 2022. And people loved it. We got a little bit of angel funding. We scaled out Magic. It scaled up. It scaled down. It was a wild ride with a lot of learnings involved in it. I eventually went back to the drawing board, completely rebuilt it from the ground up over the course of about 6 months, which is where it stands now. And then part of the way through that, Shaw went off to go work on his own projects. And we've still been in touch ever since. In fact, now since this like AI meme craze has kind of shot off, we've been back to collaborating on just projects together on the open source side of things. So I very much see like it's Shaw's an ally. He's a good friend. I respect his vision and his tech. And we always collab really well together. So we've just been cross promoting, and same with the ELIZA tech that I've currently stood Logos 89 up on is a library that Shaw made. We've actually been talking about reinvigorating Magic. It was open source. It still technically is open source, but it needs some work to turn into something which is usable. It's currently tied to some closed source stuff that was set up for our payment and cloud provision stuff. But as I've been making agents, I'm like, oh, I miss Magic. It's like Unreal Blueprints, but for autonomous AI agents, and it wasn't as powerful as it could be, but it's a great paradigm to work in. So yeah, that's very long story short. Shaw co-founded Oniricom with me. We've always wanted to do AI-powered ARGs together. We built a bunch of software together, and we still build software together as open source collaborators.
Cool. I think that answers questions on AI 16Z. Although, if anyone has more questions, we obviously move on after these questions to an AMA session. So please feel free to come up and speak. Just give me 1 second here. Moving on to the next. We had some people just honestly asking if our project was in any way connected with with what's going on with Hyper right now. Do you have anything to say about that, or do you just
with what?
Hyper? It's an account. It's an account that you're following. I believe it's been said publicly that it was a mistake.
Oh yes, no. Sometimes I see cool things and I like them, and then people are like, "Hey, that's something shilling a coin." I'm like, "Oh, okay, it's cool." No, I appreciate the, like, in a way, spin-offs really show that like you're doing something because people start stepping in. The problem is also when they start trying to pass off for your own thing. I have no problem with the meme community. I think it's great. I don't like being forced to be tied to something. It feels very kind of slimy. So no, we are not and have no intention of supporting other coins. I mean, I support coins, but I am not promoting coins. We have Project 89. It is the only coin we have. I have now started taking any account that's linked to our network will have our CA in the profile. So please look for our CA on any accounts that you're interacting with. I will make sure. I think there's a couple out there who are also associated with the project officially, that I'll make sure also gets on there. So you always know you're interacting with something that is officially representing us because the CA is very clearly identified in the profile.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for clearing that up. So as a next question, people are really excited about the Discord bot that's coming, and what people have seen so far. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean the Discord bot, it's also Logos 89 on the other side. It is a cross modal. I'm gonna bring on. I think I'm gonna try do some tests on Telegram. I might make a new Telegram channel for it just so it doesn't flood the main one. But yeah, it's Discord's a nice place for it because um, it can do long form text better. It's way better for conversation. There's a lot of functionality we can layer onto it, from like doing mod stuff, creating channels, generating images. There's gonna be a lot of this stuff. We are working right now actively on cleaning up our Discord side. Everything's just been so crazy. It's kind of has not been the top priority, but we've got somebody on it now who's just dedicated to cleaning up the Discord. We're going to be fully theming it for agents, so agent memetics division. I really want to get to be honest, the biggest thing I've often what I always wanted from an infinite ARG was basically an infinite content machine. And that's kind of what I was trying to build with AI too, of how do you create an infinite content machine? But I'm realizing that human AI fusion is actually an amazing infinite content machine, right? And the content that the community is producing is just mind-boggling. I am just in love with all of you. Like, it's like my perfect vibe. Everything that I see, every meme that I see, I'm like, yes, this is it. Like, the vibe is just so there. And I just want to keep supporting that. I want to see people making more videos and more movies and comic books and like producing media together. And that's kind of my goal for the token, is not only, yes, we're going to have AI that we're going to be able to interact with.
Oh, rip. Okay, well, I guess time to go back to Discord. Rugged. Let's take a look here and go on this. On which one? Make sure that that looks okay. We'll do that, and then we will jump back in and undeafen.
Well, we're not there yet, but I'm thinking we'll do it just as zeros and ones, so the model will actually be fed in like cellular automata data, as just as is, and hopefully from that it'll learn how to generalize the irregular but structured patterns into other difficult problems.
What comes to mind when I think about this is almost like pre-training. Like you like initialize your model on cellular automata before it even sees language, and somehow you've like expanded the weights into some sort of initialization that can converge properly. I don't know. Perhaps that's is there any research on this? Like, what is the actual thesis of this paper, this archive paper that you posted in here?
Well, in the paper, they actually kind of suggested why this happens. They didn't really go too in depth into it, but essentially, there's some sort of hidden pattern if you feed it in a row of cellular automata, and the algorithm, the training process teaches the model how to put more steps into its thinking. So it essentially becomes like, it increases it's called attention in
right.
in like transformer models. It increases how much attention it puts into the like decision making process.
So it forces the model to think deeply, kind
Yes,
of like O1.
Yeah.
You're yeah, I like that. Your pre-training. Really cool, Keith. So we collect all this data, and And so where do we take it from there?
One, we open source it because that's
Based.
the whole point of this. We give it to the world. We say BitTensor produced this, and hopefully that in and of itself ignites research. Two, we catalyze as much of that research ourselves as we can.
Let's see, are we keeping it
And
back up?
Perhaps with Prashant and some of the other AGI-minded people in the community, try to incorporate this into some kind of training process
Interesting.
and see what we get out the other end. And three, we keep going.
What's kind of interesting here as well, Zion, like the study of these cellular automata. You have a totally abstract benchmark for intelligence, right? Like one thing I see in this is, and the measure of intelligence is incredibly important, right? So I don't know if you guys have read Colomet's paper on the measure of intelligence and how like benchmarks sort of are what drives the field. I mean, inside of the study of a cellular automata, like the exploration of this deep data set, are you guys thinking that like out on the other side pops like the ultimate measure of intelligence?
That would be very cool.
Maybe
I think if everything goes really well, and we generate this giant data set, and then we move into different rule sets, right? To start, because if you look at these things, they're classified. Wolfram, like, traditionally classifies automata in one of four categories. It's like it fizzles out, it's just simple and it repeats. It's and they're increasing the complexity here. The third would be like, oh, it's just chaos and noise, and the fourth would be like, it looks like chaos, but it's actually repeating in some kind of pattern that we can't predict, but it doesn't end up in noise. It just continues complexifying into infinity. And the way that they did it in this paper was they took essentially random snippets from these, primarily the 3 and 4 based complexity rule sets in order to, use the data that was on the edge of chaos, right? That going back to the name of the paper. And then you feed these into the LLM and you start putting some structure around this with BitTensor, where you can imagine where this subnet would create competitions for, sort of spicing up a model that has these different additions into it, that are creating either emergent properties or charting like very incremental, obvious improvements on things that LLMs can already do. And this, for me, feels like right up BitTensor's alley, is creating a competition between miners to, essentially have a model that's been trained on cellular automata that's then generating improvement on things that everybody uses models for.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind is obviously what Mutex are doing on, oh gosh, I forget the number, but in NASChain.
31.
31, where they're studying, architectures that can train quicker on CFAR, and inside of that neural architecture search is the goal of finding architectures which are, arbitrarily good or like generally valuable. And here, Mutex is going to come up on the stage and speak to that.
I do believe.
Hey guys,
Hey,
Mutex.
can you guys hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
good. Yep.
Right, nice. Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, I think we were talking right about you.
Yeah.
So I do want to jump into
Perfect
this
time for you to
anyway
come.
once they have it, because I want to
Yeah,
ask Percy a few things.
SN39 is something that I always follow up because we have some common interest in there. But yeah, we at SN31 perform neural architecture search to optimize models for hardware. So we are very hardware-oriented subnet.
Look, there's somebody in my house. I
Unlike
did not
a lot
even
of other
notice
subnets that might have one objective to optimize, that is accuracy, we would like to have a spectrum of models for a given data set or a task that not only is accurate enough, but also reduces the compute and the memory requirement of that model. So in terms of what we target is we're not we are not even talking about laptops or household computers. We target very small microcontrollers and microchips. So we target your smartwatch or your medical devices that you might want to run an AI on them, but you will have a very limited amount of compute and memory in there. So, and off-the-shelf models that you might find, anything like a ResNet, MobileNet, if you just take them out, they won't fit in there. And we perform a multi-objective optimization that optimize three objectives: maximize accuracy, minimize number of floating point operations required for the inference, and also parameters that's used in the RAM. So we would like to discover all this possible combination of layers and convolutional layers and residual connections, number of filters, the dilation. These are all, if you look, possible combinations of how many permutation of these models you can design in compared to off-the-shelf models like ResNets or MobileNets or DenseNets. And we have shown that we can take a model like MobileNet version 3 and start mutating on it.
To give us like a really solid community where we can really grow ourselves, right? So what I was saying was that my vision for the token is an internal community that are all
but with like different
working
approaches
together.
Yes, yeah.
And I think where you're taking the approach of, well, let's explore the space of architectures and give the miners a lot of freedom to propose solutions. We sort of combine them a little bit more, and we say, no, we care specifically about stable diffusion, for example.
Oh, well,
and get this.
I guess we've already done these two for a little bit, so let's swap over to the third thread guy, but I'm not sure if, oh my god, what is going on with these ad breaks? Twitch sucks, dude. Okay, well, never mind. We'll just go back here.
Useful.
Definitely.
Everyone has those, and not everyone has H100s and A100s and B200s. I mean, we need everything to be running AI cheaply and efficiently and in an optimized way.
There we go.
Yeah.
So let's go there, and then let's check this one, and then let's see what you're saying, thread guy. Anything interesting? Please stop. Thank you.
Trade it for
he's gonna take a bunch of money and trade for profit. Yes.
Okay. So like I don't as a contributor to a DAO, I'm not the creator of it. I'm just like a contributor that invested in it. I don't actually have to do anything. Like I kind of just like sit there and wait.
Well, we want you to obviously make money for investors. Right? That's the whole point of investing now. You need to make money for investors, so you can wait. I mean, if your strategy is to wait for a bear market and go in, yeah, that's totally fine. But just communicate that to your followers so they don't get mad at you for just not caring about.
I guess the question. Let me rephrase it. I guess the question is, only the creator of the fund is able to like execute moves and trades with the fund.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. They should fix that.
Blown up like a massive DAO yet? Like, what's the worst loss?
Blown up? No one has blown up. People have made a lot of money, but I think there are some losses, but they're not. Because like the thing is, a lot of people just ended up buying DAO tokens. Like they bought AI16Z, and they're up massively. Or
interesting.
Yeah.
People like raised a DAO to buy other DAOs.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane.
Were you expecting that to happen?
Which is very interesting.
No, I didn't expect it to happen. I didn't expect AI16Z.
Because that's how you go less PvP about this.
A giant picture of the AI16Z girl. So none of this I expected.
So what are people investing in with these DAOs? Like, are they mostly buying other DAOs? Like, people are buying meme coins? Are there rules around what you can buy? Like, how is it played out so far? You said a lot of people are buying other DAOs or investing in other DAOs. Like, what other activity are you seeing?
I've seen. I mean, Koso raised like 700K. So I mean, he's gonna like, I don't know, do something with the money. I don't know. Like, the coolest thing is AI 16Z. Like, they're making a new website. They have an entire dev team.
Hell yeah.
They have. They literally can. They literally have more ARR than like the vast majority of SaaS companies. Like, it's
Hell
crazy.
yeah. Okay, let me.
It's not
so
just
they're like a
talking with
full-blown
an
organization.
agent. It's using video generation tools and image making and sound and music to be able to produce something.
Okay. Let's see. It's what are the DAOs buying? Is that vital information right now? Not really.
It's all matter of searching how deep you want to go, or how much width of height of that block you want to put in the architecture. And we will test this actually when we switch to a ImageNet, for example. Do we have to start from scratch, and miners are just gonna take their state of the art block and just perform a slow and small mutation on it, and then we, instead of waiting for 2-3 weeks for them to find a new block, would that generalize?
Hey, just as a brief side note, Mutex, this
Yeah.
is the first time I've ever communicated with you.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of interesting things we could collaborate on, so
Yeah.
it'd be great to set up some time to chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Good stuff.
So, we also have another subnet here too to talk about, which is 39, which is also really an optimization subnet. And how far have we come? Like, that one's been out in the wild for a while, and yeah, my question is like, what have we optimized down to, and do we have any compelling results from that?
Yes, I'll keep things short and sweet on 39. The objective there is to optimize models for consumer hardware. So taking a model that you normally are running on like an A100 or an H100 and get it running extremely quickly and efficiently with as high accuracy as possible, but on lower end devices. And so our first focus was running stable diffusion on 4090s. And since launching the subnet about 2-3 months ago, we've made that model about 2.5 times faster while being 95% as accurate. Next week, we're going to release sort of a major kind of press release and blog post about what we've accomplished. And not long after that, we're going to expand the optimization to other models and other hardware types. But we've sort of reached that n equals 1 proof point where the subnet has successfully optimized one model for one piece of hardware. And now we want to scale that out to, a much larger end.
Where does that stack up against other attempts at the same problem?
Well, on one hand, I think it's the most competitive, fastest version of Stable Diffusion now. But on the other hand, that's happening in a very specific kind of band of this specific version of Stable Diffusion on this specific hardware type. So that's the caveat.
So long term here, the subnet can be a place where, hey, I have this model I'm running on as a backend for my application, as you guys use Stable Diffusion, and it's costing you X amount of dollars per month because it's so expensive. You have to run A100s. So on this subnet, you could come, drop this into this miner ecosystem, and in a month or so, you've halved the computational cost, doubled the speed, and cost only a little bit in terms of accuracy. So that's real dollars, right? For a company like you, like put it in perspective for us.
That's exactly right, Const. Our biggest expense has always been inference and server cost associated with that inference. Our best hire was a guy who's one of the leading experts in the world at this model optimization, and Prashant knows this guy well. And we basically turned this guy into a subnet. and there's very few people with the skill set. I'll say beyond the sort of business value, I think there's a secondary thing here, which is you are opening the pool of possible compute contributors. And you are going from only the people with data centers can contribute compute to anyone with a MacBook, anyone with a PlayStation, anyone with an iPhone, anyone with a gaming computer can contribute compute. And I think expanding the pool of compute contributors to the average everyday person who maybe knows very little about AI is extremely, extremely important. And that's one of our major goals with the subnet.
In the mechanism for 39, there's sort of limitations you guys have on what they're allowed to do, right? So they have to be able to get 95% accuracy. I'm curious, or like only a 5% reduction in performance. How do you measure that? And like, how do we expand the space that people can evolve these models in to allow them? I mean, because I'm assuming that it has to be a torch model, right? I'm assuming that you're doing quantization. Like, how does it work? What exactly is being employed by the miners? Where are they allowed to go? Are they distilling models here?
I'm gonna see if the other Alex is available to answer this. You want to come here, or you want to do it from there? Okay. Other Alex is about to join and answer your question.
Okay, hell yeah. Alex is the engineer that does model compression.
Yes, and our subnet team is myself, and I'm sort of the retarded front man. And we've got three excellent engineers, and one of them is here now.
Hey. So our miners have been using a lot of different techniques to achieve these optimized models. Mainly what we've been seeing is tools such as SDFast and OneFlow, which is what miners started out with to optimize these models. And then they started to use things like OneDiffX, which has significantly improved these models. As Ben has said, we've seen like twice as fast or 2.5 times as fast while maintaining like 95% similarity, which is extremely impressive. I can share these models if anyone wants to see them.
Yes, please do. And how do you measure similarity here? Like I'm always a geek for incentive mechanisms. There's always so many problems that can arise in the design. So I like take us through the journey of how you guys started with this problem and where you got to, like what bugs you had to squash. Because I think like that knowledge, seeping out into the ecosystem, people watch these calls. It's very interesting.
Yeah, we've gone through many different like types of ways to calculate like similarity. We started out with just like simple cosine similarity to compare it between the optimized and the baseline model, and then we eventually figured out like new ways like using like structural similarity, which has caused like very accurate comparisons. So we know exactly um, how fast these models are, and we know they're like very similar, if that makes sense. I
What
can
is structural? Yeah, what is structural comparison?
Okay, so structural similarity compares like the how well the model looks, like how well it compares to the other model, like how visually similar the image looks.